I did my master's from UK from Goldsmiths College. My master's was in documentary film production. And I also did a certificate course, professionals course from European Media School in UK. That was on, both were on Chevening scholarship in a way. Okay. And then I went to Oklahoma State University on my Fulbright scholarship, and I studied film research at Oklahoma State. I did my PhD from University of the Punjab, and my PhD research topic was visual pleasure in Pakistani cinema. So you can say that precisely focused on images of women in the cinema and how images of women are used for pleasure. So most of my research that I did before doing my PhD was on international films, quite a few on films on war issues or war films. After my PhD, I have done a lot of work on gender issues in Pakistani film. You'll find, I think, 2, 3 readings on this page. So have you looked at what is posted on this page?
Yes. Wait,
All right. Do you realize? Okay. Um, I would try sharing with you what I have posted here in terms of uh, course breakdown or grading criteria. Okay, or course criteria. Can you see this sheet?
Yes, ma'am.
It says assignments 25%. All right. And it also says research papers 50% at the bottom of the page.
Yes.
So most of your work will be assignment based, including your mid and final papers. So we can say that the research papers that it says here will include midterm research paper and final research paper. So each of them will be, the two will be marked for 50%. Okay. All right.
yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So 75% for written work, which will be paper based. It says presentation 10%. So please make sure you do not miss class presentations, because if you miss it, you lose 10% marks. It also says peer review 5%. Are you familiar with it?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Peer review is reviewing work of your fellow student. So in one of the last classes towards the end of the course, which will be, I would say, which will be around 26th of August, please make sure you do not miss the class on that day, because I will ask you to review final exam of your fellow student in that class, which means you will not be reviewing the final draft, you will be reviewing and you will be reviewing first or second draft of your fellow student, as the student will be asked to share his or her work with you. You will review in class. Okay. So peer review will be marked for 5%. Class
Okay.
participation, it says 10%. And I think I have completed how we'll be marking coursework here. Okay. Any questions so far? In one of my courses last semester, I had dedicated 20% marks to presentation. This time I've only assigned 10%. So please make sure you're not missing any of these. The assignments, 2 assignments It says 25%, it means one assignment will be for 15 marks and the other might be for 10 marks, depending on how much time we have, depending on how we are dealing with the assignments. So sometimes I do ask my students to convert their assignment into an exam. So make sure that you share your assignment with me in time and you do not miss the assignment, because if you miss the assignment, it will be difficult for you to change your assignment into your mid or final exam. Or it normally helps if you do the assignment on time, you can submit a better mid or final exam. Okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
All right. So somebody shared a link here.
Miss, that was me. I just added you to the WhatsApp group.
Okay.
WhatsApp group.
I'll try joining it.
No, you're already in the group
Okay, I am already in the group. Great. So you created,
as an admin.
okay, so you created the group. Group's name is Women in Media.
Yes.
All right. So, all right, Women in Media is sufficient. If you like, you can also add Summer to
Okay.
the name, because I think I am also part of some Women in Media group, which happens to be uh, spring class. So if you add Summer, it will be simpler. Okay.
Done.
All right. Okay, so everybody is clear about the grading criteria or class criteria.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, okay, let's look at the page. All right. It says representation. Please ignore the dates besides different uh, different classes, because these are dates from spring. I'll be changing these. I'll be removing the dates from here. I have removed from the other class somehow. I think I missed this one. So it says representations in Pakistani film. That is about representations of women in Pakistani film. Um, and second one says sexualized objects and honor. Okay, let's see what is here. You would realize that these are actually going in order. What I would do, I would post add dates here today. Okay, so you have, see, material is already posted here. So this one is an encyclopedia entry. Can you read the title? It says Encyclopedia of Women and Islamic Cultures, and it talks about representations of women in Pakistani film. The earlier part of the article is just telling you something about the Pakistan film industry. Encyclopedia entries are like this. You need an introduction to the film industry before you start talking about representations, right? If it was a journal entry, which means a research paper published in a journal, it would start differently. It will directly start from representations of women in Pakistani films. I believe those from DLA and psychology department understand what I'm saying is the difference between encyclopedia entries and journal entries. Are you
Yes.
okay? So because encyclopedia is for general for public at large, so it starts with the introduction, and journal entries focus more on the topic, which is cinema representations in commercial films, Pakistan. All right, uh, we'll come back to it. The article is posted here because sometimes students cannot access them directly. The second topic says sexualized objects, right? So there are three papers posted under this link. This is the third one actually focuses on the topic. So please don't get confused by looking at the first one. This is the research paper by Sadaf Ahmed. The title is Sexualized Objects and the Embodiment of Honor, Rape in Pakistani Films. Um, did TFT student say she's from semester 5? I think she can't hear me right now. All right. So Sadaf Ahmed actually selected about 35, 36 Pakistani films. And all those films were super hit films. So she looked at how the films represented rape or attempt to rape. So you can understand that she's only looking at rape or attempt to rape in Pakistani film. And then she wrote this article. We will discuss this article as well. Okay. Any question so far?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So first three articles here are on Pakistani film. The third one says censorship of visual pleasure. And I said this was my PhD research topic. So, and visual pleasure is a topic that actually Laura Mulvey worked on. And she wrote this article on visual pleasure in narrative film. You can see it here. This is the first article posted here. Visual pleasure and narrative cinema. Laura Mulvey wrote this article back in 1977. Um, she is from UK, and she was very familiar with the French film and also Hollywood films. But this article is primarily focusing on images of women in Hollywood cinema, right? So Mulvey felt that films, if you read here, she felt that films focus on female fascination, and Hollywood film in particular uses pre-existing pattern of female fascination, and that's how she felt Hollywood films uh, attract male audience in black and white, like in the darkness of the theater, focuses on film. So she was focusing on primarily on male audience and Hollywood film, and her focus was like how cinema creates one-to-one relationship between male audience and the screen, right? So does everyone understand what one-to-one relationship mean? No?
Ma'am, does it describe basically the role of how the director and the film he is creating influences the audience on an individual level, like how you are supposed to engage with it?
Yes, it is about individual level and how viewer engages with the film. But one-to-one relationship means that when you're watching film in the theater or in cinema, it's dark. And you are not familiar with people sitting next to you, right? In cinema, you are not supposed to know people who are sitting either on your left or right side. Of course, you can go there with your family or friends, but in the darkness of the theater, relationship is one-to-one because you are not talking with each other when you are in cinema. If you're watching TV at home, you can talk to everyone who is sitting in the living room while watching TV, right? So
Mhm. Hmm.
So is the concept clear now?
Yes, so it's basically like a relationship between the screen and the structure of the cinema.
Right. Exactly. And also primarily about the relationship between the viewer and the screen.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
So Malve is focusing on primary relationships. Most of the communication theorists do say that in cinema you have primary relationship with the screen because you are not doing anything else. So there can be three types of relationship, which means primary relationship, secondary relationship, or tertiary relationship with the screen. Okay, so primary relationship is about one-to-one relationship, and that is normally in cinema because in the darkness of the theater you are doing nothing else except looking at the screen. Okay, when you are watching TV at home, you may also be looking at your cell phone. You may be talking to people around you and watching uh, the TV play or film as well. So that is called secondary relationship because you may be doing other things. Your attention may be divided. Okay. So that is called secondary relationship. Any idea what is tertiary relationship with the screen? Tertiary relationship means that TV may be playing in the background and you may be in the room or in the kitchen, which means relationship with the screen is even lesser. Especially when people are alone at the house, they may leave TV on and they can be doing other things. So tertiary relationship is even weaker, right? So it means people are doing more work. They are hardly attentive to TV screen. It's just playing in the background. It's on. You're not watching it, or you are grasping things occasionally. So is it clear what primary, secondary, or tertiary relationship with the screen mean?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so Mulvey actually meant that Hollywood creates film for the pleasure of male audience, and Hollywood does not particularly create films for female audience. So she meant that films create, reproduce or reinforce images which patriarchy has created. Okay, so visual pleasure and narrative cinema actually means recreation of or reinforcement of pre-existing patterns of female fascination. If women behave this way, they are good women. If women behave that way, they are bad women. And cinema of most countries uh, sticks to the cultures and reinforces pre-existing pattern of female fascination. Okay. So I said the first article here is by Laura Mulvey. She originally wrote this article back in 1977 and then she revisited her own article uh, at the start of the millennium and she wrote two more articles, uh, visual pleasure on visual pleasure, which are revisiting visual pleasure. So it means the authors sometimes go back to their own articles. Mulvey went back to her own article about 30 years later, and what she wrote 30 years later was no different from what she had written earlier. Rather, she was writing more on how visual pleasure is reinforced in today's world. Okay, so there is here is interview of Laura Mulvey. If you like, you can read it too. I would hardly have time to go through this interview because the topic emphasizes on gaze in films, which means that when viewers are watching films in cinema, they are gazing on the screen, and cinema screen captures the gaze, especially of male audience. This is another article which says visual pleasure in Pakistani cinema. right? So I wrote this article because I felt that visual pleasure in Western world might be different from visual pleasure in the East, right? So this article was focusing on visual pleasure in Pakistani films because I felt that culture is different in Pakistan when it comes to gazing and when it comes to male-female relationship or even relationship with the screen, viewers' relationship with the screen. Okay, any comment? No?
Um, Ma'am, I wanted to ask exactly how or why are these different stages or ways of relationship are relevant or important for the viewer?
uh, Viewer would hardly know about these things. Uh, we being theorists, you know, or communication experts, or students or scholars, we try to understand the viewer's relationship with the screen. Viewers, when they are watching film in cinema or when they are watching a program on television or a drama on TV, they hardly know that they have a primary relationship or secondary relationship or tertiary relationship with the screen. These are terminologies that you can say experts have created, or people who are from academia, because they look at things differently. They try to understand what are the effects of television or cinema on the viewer. So these are important for studying the effects. Or when we were looking at Laura Mulvey's article, she does not mention effects. She calls it psychoanalysis. You see, psychoanalysis, a political use of psychoanalysis. She has divided her article into different segments. And then she starts talking about castration anxiety in this article. I believe at least psychology students would be familiar with the word castration anxiety,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So
Yes.
I would explain it to other students. It would help if you know about it earlier, but it's not a very difficult concept. It's a simple concept. Uh, wo- though I think that it's a complicated and difficult article, right? So viewers actually hardly know about these things. These are the things for, these are educated um concepts. So you can say that scholars actually understand what it means. So for developing scholarship or developing argument on these concepts, it's important to create concepts and then scholars debate on concepts among them and further develop the concepts. So you can actually agree or disagree with the concepts that we read in the articles.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. So any other question so far? No? All right. So after visual pleasure, so this article I said focuses on visual pleasure in Pakistani cinema because I felt our culture is different. So I wanted to see how women are seen on Pakistani screen. And this divides Pakistani cinema into two eras, which are pre and post uh, 1979, which means before Bhutto, before Zia and after Zia. Zia came in 1977, but this article has a date which is before and after 1979 because Zia issued motion picture ordinance in 1979. So this article actually discusses how films were treating women before the motion picture ordinance was issued and after the motion picture ordinance was issued, because it's primarily about censorship of female images, women's images on the screen. Okay. All right. So next article here says Mommy's Matriarchs and Other Controlling Images. So you can see this article is published in this book. I have posted the book because I did find the article online, but I thought article had some problems. Uh, Paras were up and down, so best was to read the articles from the book. Okay, so let's try finding the article. It says Mommy's Matriarchs and Other Controlling Images is chapter 4 on this page. Can you see it here? Chapter 4, Mommy's Matriarchs and Other Controlling Images. Okay. This article focuses on images of African women on screen, primarily in the US, or how white people call some African women mommies and some African women matriarchs. And they have created other controlling images for them. When you read it, you will realize that some African women are called breeders, some are called welfare moms, and some are called Jezebel or hookers. So this actually focuses on what kind of controlling images are created for women living in US or in Western world, black women in the West. Okay, so this actually focuses on images of women, African women in white content, mostly Hollywood content or uh, content on the American screens. Okay. Uh, then this article says Orientalism and gender. I believe DLA students may be familiar with this word Orientalism.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do psychology students know what it means?
Yes.
Yes, some of us, I think.
Okay. All right. So this is about the women or people from the Arab world, or from not just Arab, also the subcontinent. Some African countries in this part of the world, in fact, 22 countries are included in the list of Oriental countries or Oriental world. So this actually focuses on what kind of images of Orient were created over 200 years in the past. So Edward Said actually thought uh, these that West had created and repeated images of Oriental people. You can see that I have posted a number of video clips here, right? These are short clips, and this last one is actually Said's interview. Okay, I will not play it right now. We will specifically read it at a particular time, and we will watch this interview of Said as well. This is about 40 minutes long, and this is on YouTube, so you can just click the link here and go to YouTube and watch it. Okay. I think you can't hear it, but you can see the images. All right, so this we will be viewing this interview of Edward Said, and we will be looking at other clips that I have posted here, and we will discuss how um, Orientalism and gender is created by Hollywood films and through art and literature over 200 years, right? You can see there is a link to another article here. This article is by Yasmin Giovanni. She's looking at it, the article's title is Exotic, Erotic and Dangerous South Asian Woman. Okay, so she's just looking at it, why South Asian women are considered dangerous by the Western world. You'll be surprised because this article actually discusses about Eastern women, what people of the East say about Western women. We feel Western women are sexually independent. This article feels, the author of the article says that Western people feel that women of the East are quite distracting for men of the East, and men do not focus on their work and they focus on sexuality and producing children. That's why we have large population in this part of the world. So it's looking at, how others are seeing us and perhaps saying what we say about them or their women. Next article says, why black skin, white masks? Have you come across this idea before?
Ma'am, does it pertain to how they would? I read an article once, it was a while back, on how there was a culture in entertainment in which they would paint entertainment also in slavery, where they would paint like the African American individuals in white paint. That's what I'm not sure if it's linking to that.
I think you would easily relate to what you have read before when you read this article. Here we are not reading the whole article, though I have posted the link to the book, right? And here is the book, Black Skin, White Masks. You can see author's name. His name is Frantz Fanon. So if you are familiar with Franz's name, it says black skin, white masks. It actually means that you are black or African outside, but inside you are white, or you want whiteness.
Ma'am, I have had a discussion on this book with one of my like uh, previous teachers.
Okay, so that's why I said we are not discussing a book. This is a long book. We are not discussing a chapter either. It says 225 pages. What I have actually done, I have selected only 3 pages from this book, right? Those pages are posted here. So the book actually discusses a novel, and the novel title is Je suis Martinique. Can you see? It's written here right on the top of para 1. So I selected these 3 pages that discuss Je suis Martinique, and the author's name is Mayoti Kapisha. It's written here in the 6th and 7th line, Mayoti Kapisha. And Frantz Fanon is actually discussing Mayoti Kapisha's desire to have whiteness in her, right? So in these 3 pages, he is actually focusing on how Mayoti Kapisha looks at herself and how motivated, she's very motivated to get some whiteness. And she tries to be, she's black outside and she wants whiteness inside. Okay, so as I said that I have posted 3 pages from the book here, page 1, page 2 and page 3. So we will only discuss these 3 pages from this book, Black Skin, White Masks, and discuss the complications in Mayoti Capicia's life. And because she has a white husband, so she is discussing how she feels with her white husband and why she feels uh, white husband loves her but does not respect her. So it is in a way of discussing interracial marriages or black and white marriages. It would automatically apply to others. Um, the next one is An American Family, and this is actually a documentary series. And you cannot exactly call it a documentary series because it's a series on the life of a real family, a real American family. An American Family is the first reality show ever produced in the world. All right. This reality show uh, included a family of 7, which means parents and 5 children. The producers of the producer's name is written here, Craig Gilbert. He contacted a family in Santa Barbara, US, and he said that we will put cameras all over the house and we will shoot whatever is happening in your life on daily basis. They were shooting in their house, cameras were fixed all over the house, and they were shooting whatever was happening in the life of husband, wife, and children for 10 months, right? Please turn off your microphones. Okay, thank you. So I was saying that Craig Gilbert signed an agreement with 7 family members that he will put cameras all over their house and shoot whatever is happening there in their lives. So husband, wife, and children signed the agreement. So that's why I'm saying it's a documentary, because he was documenting what was happening in their lives. Hollywood films or Pakistani cinema or the Indian normally tries to show good families, and if there are bad members, the films end at something good, because the overall message of the film is normally not negative, right? So films normally try to show what society wants or what patriarchy wants. They want to show ideal families. This documentary series shows that families are not that much ideal, because in this documentary, husband and wife over a period of time actually divorce each other. So this film showed real on-air divorce back in 1973. This was the first reality show in the world, and this was the first production in the world on gay lesbians, because one of their child was gay. Okay, so this Lance Loud actually became gay icon back in 1970s because of this production. And though this was an ordinary family, the family members became celebrities because they were on air for quite long. It was, I think, weekly show at that time. Okay. And then there is another article, it says femme fatale. Do you know what it means? Femme fatale actually means fatal woman. and industrialization in America began in 1920s. It brought women into, it created working women in large numbers, right? So as the number of working women increased in post-World War eras, 1920s actually means after World War One. Okay, so it means a lot of women started working outside. World War had sent men to war. It means women were head of the family in the absence of wars, right? So I believe all of you know World War One was from. Do you know the dates of World War One? Hello, are you there? Can you hear me? Gee, anybody, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So I was wondering because wait for your responses, especially they are needed
Hello?
online. Gigi.
No, I didn't
I think
hear your
your
question.
internet is not so great. I've been trying to unmute myself, but the World War One was from 1914. It
Till
started in
19.
July and it continued till 1918, till November.
Gee, anyone else?
Miss, what Amna said is right.
All right, World War One. All right. So you are saying it started in 1914. It says it here, and ended in end of November. So 5 years from 1914 to 1919 or end of November 1918. Okay. All right. So you can understand after World War One, and which is like just the beginning of before 1920s, the World War ended, and World War One is also the time, after World War One, industrialization also started in the US. So you can understand more and more women were working. And this is the time when long skirts started disappearing and women were found in mini skirts as well. So, does anyone know what's the date of what are the dates of World War Two?
Miss, 1939, I believe, to 1945.
Yes, 1944 or 45 because I
45.
think
I
it
think
will take
45, yeah.
yes, it will take it was for 5 years. So during both the wars, women became head of their families, and because men were absent, so they were taking care of the families and they were responsible for providing everything to the families. So you can understand that world wars had a strong impact on creation of working women.
Miss, I had a question.
जी जी बताइए.
So, what I'm gathering is that how are they linking women in war to the term femme fatale?
No, no, they are not creating war to femme fatale. I just said femme fatale actually means fatal woman.
Yeah.
Because Hollywood actually created femme fatales back in 1940s. And these fatal women are actually working women. And I said industrialization was in 1920s. So after World War One and before World War Two, you would find lots of working women in the real life, right? And in the industrialization's impact was that skirt size was also reduced from long skirt to mini skirt. And as women started working, they were in charge of their own money, right? And 1940s film actually, if you, this book actually says, this is by Yvonne Tasker, and the title is Working Girls, right?
Hmm.
Gender and
Yes.
gender and sexuality in popular cinema, right? So Hollywood was
Ma'am,
actually
this reminds me that there was this course that we did. It was gender and media. So in that we studied women in Greek societies. So तब भी जब wars होती थी, when the wars used to take place, the Spartan woman used to be the one who handled their homes and their children when men used to go on war. Now this is the time when which is called the beginning of the civilization. So can we say that it has been happening way before the World War One, from the very beginning, whenever the men had to leave for war or for such purposes, the women were left behind to take care of the stuff. So
definitely. Uh, you're absolutely right because the
Uh-huh.
fear is about working girls. जी बताइए.
No, miss, it slipped my mind. I'll mention it when it comes back. Sorry.
Okay, that's no problem at all. So I'm saying that Hollywood actually introduced Fatal Woman in cinema in 1940s. So working women were shown as dangerous. Okay, working women because they were in charge of their sexuality and work and money, you know. So working, how Hollywood was showing working women, started showing working women as dangerous back in 1940s, and 1940s femme fatale films actually ended with their deaths. Okay, so there is an article in this book that says femme fatale. The title is femme fatale. We will read that article because that article discusses how the images of fatal women changed over a period of time. Like 1940s films ended with their death, how the images changed in 1970s, 1980s, and new millennium, right? So,
Ma'am, I have a question.
Gigi.
So, what was the general reaction of women working outside for their families and working for to earn, and what was the reaction of people
Uh,
when you were out there?
you're talking about people outside, right? So
Yes.
we are talking about images inside in the films, right? How films were showing working women. So as far as the question about people at large, it means then that we'll have to look at research on public at large, right?
Okay.
So these are different kind of researches. This article focuses on content analysis of films. It is only showing what films are showing. It's discussing what films are showing. And for knowing what people are thinking outside, we need research of people, right? Which means you may be familiar with quantitative analysis, which means going out and interviewing uh, about 100, 200, or 1000 people and asking them this question: do you think that working women are dangerous or independent? So even if you conduct a research in Pakistan, you will probably find that people think that educated women or working women, uh, they hardly listen to their families, or they hardly want to do what their families want. So patriarchy actually, even in Pakistan or in the Western world, would want different kind of reactions for women. Patriarchy probably would desire that we reinforce, as I said earlier, patterns of female fascination, good women and bad women. So 1940s films were actually showing working women as bad women, right? And you may have heard of Basic Instinct. It was a popular uh, Hollywood film. That is one of the first films I think it was produced at the start of 1990s that actually did not kill the working woman at the end. Films often show that a housewife is better than working woman. So some of these films you would see they are ending at the death of woman and wife taking over, taking control of everything. So we will only discuss how films were showing fatal woman over a period of time,
Miss,
beginning 1940s up to the new millennium. Ji.
Miss, I had a question. Were there any other roles of how women were depicted during war in these films, or
Uh,
besides the women?
uh, all right. So I mentioned one thing earlier. You're here from the start, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I mentioned an
No,
article.
as in you mentioned, yes.
Nini, just continue. You finish.
Yes, you mentioned how they had divided it into like a good role and a bad role, where the bad was usually the working woman and the good were more the housewives, and there was a clear narrative to kill one off. But were women depicted in other ways in these movies as well?
Yes, they are working and independent women because basic instinct ended with if women are independent, the film offer ends uh, at the women fall in love, and when they fall in love, they are not that much fatal anymore.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So, what probably it implies that independent women were considered dangerous and domesticated women were not so dangerous. So, the minute a woman falls in love, she is not that dangerous. That is how they are presented in film. It does not mean that is the reality, but I'm saying that films, this is how the 40s and 70s and 80s or 90s films represented working women. And representations were changing over a period of time. In 40s, Fatal Woman film ended at their death. In 70s, there was a change in the treatment. And then in 90s, in Basic Instinct, woman did not die. She just fell in love. And as we move on, we'll find how Fatal Woman was treated or Working Woman was treated in the new millennium films, right? So all it
Hmm.
means that how films are about writing stories. So if the author writes that this working woman is highly, she's independent, she's in charge of her sexuality, she's breaking the norms and everything. So the film may end at her death, right? So in the 1940s, it did end. 1940s working girl films ended with their death, right? That's how femme fatale genre was created, or they were not essentially A grade films. Some of them were graded as B films in 1940s because they were showing sexual content or they were thrillers of the time. Okay.
And ma'am, one more question. Does this only pertain to Hollywood, or is it like a global
Uh,
movie?
well, you when we read articles, because this article is focusing on Hollywood films.
Okay.
So what researchers actually do that when they read an article about Western world or from some other part of the world, they can actually conduct research on their own country. Like I said earlier, that after reading Malve's article, I thought I need to write an article on visual pleasure in Pakistani cinema because I thought Pakistani culture was different. So you can probably say that it may be global, but before saying that it is global, patriarchy is global, you'll actually need research from your own country or your own world, right? So
Yes.
it means that then you look at, for example, Pakistani film, Indian film, or Russian film, and you pick up how Russian films are treating working girls and how Pakistani films are treating working girls, right?
Oh,
So
yes.
in one of my articles that I've mentioned earlier, there was an article on representations of women. It was an encyclopedia entry that I mentioned earlier. That article actually shows that it has a film from 1950s. It briefly discusses the film, and it shows that in Pakistani film Kismat, uh, a family was looking for a match for their son who was a doctor. So they went to a house and they met two girls in the house. One was doing her MA from the university, and the other had stopped studying after grade 8. So the elder brother tells Dr. Sahab to marry the grade 8 girl who was the elder sister and had stopped studying after grade 8. He said that she would be a better wife, and the girl who was doing masters would be a wannabe. He felt that she will not be a good wife, and that's an old film from 1950s, I believe. So you can say that Pakistani films were actually, in a way, that film actually does not support the idea of education for women, because the girl who was doing masters was considered a bad girl, and the film actually shows her as a bad girl, right? Kismet from Pakistan was actually a super hit film uh, of the era, and Musarrat Nazir had worked in that film. So what it is not about reality; it is about what the film is showing, right? So the articles actually discuss how films are showing working girls or educated girls, if they are showing them as good women or bad women. So it depends on what story somebody has written and how the director has produced that film. Okay. Any other?
Ma'am, sorry.
जी जी बताइए, please.
Ma'am, like, does the theater come in the like genre of media, and also if so, तो theater के अंदर representations differ करती थी या वैसी थी जैसे cinema के अंदर थी?
Uh, See, everything is here, things are divided into eras, right? Like how films were presenting working women in 1940s, how films were presenting working women in 1970s. So you can see that it took about 30 years to change the representation of early working girls. So in 1940s, they were shown as bad women. They were shown as in charge of their sexuality, their money. They were independent, and they were not good housewives, or they were not good for the family, right? So after 30 years, in 1970s, the images changed. We are discussing how films were showing working women. So from 1940s to 1970s, it took about 30 years to change the image of working woman a little. Then in 1980s, the women further changed. So you can see after a gap, which is the first gap is long after 1940s, the change was in 1970s. But from 70s to 80s and 90s and new millennium, the change is a bit faster, because you are seeing changes almost every 10 years, right? So you can say that it is because of the discourse or debate that is created around the images of these working women, right? So when people, you can also say that feminism also increased from 1960s to end of new millennium, because Laura Mulvey wrote her article in 1977, and you can say that in the latter half of the past century, a lot of women were writing, and because discourse had tremendously increased. So because of this discourse, there were changes in images of popular film, right? So it's about your reaction and other reaction, and great development in feminism in the latter half of the past century and beginning of new millennium, that you would see change in the images. Otherwise, media or film or theater being part of media, would continue presenting images that are patriarchal, or images that are perceived as good or bad. Okay,
जी
so
जी
in the new millennium, in the past 10 years, you may have seen this wave, especially in this part of the world. India, in particular, produced a lot of TV commercials and a lot of other content that focused on changing images of daughters or women. For example, लड़के नहीं रोते. If you have seen the TV commercial, it says हम बच्चों को, why don't we teach our sons कि लड़के रुलाते नहीं हैं. Because that long TV commercial ends at a boy hurting a girl, and then Madhuri Dixit appears and says, why don't we teach our sons लड़के रुलाते नहीं हैं, बजाय इसके कि लड़के नहीं रोते. That's a very popular TV advertisement. If you write on YouTube, you would definitely come across that TV commercial. So what I mean that actually change requires movements, uh, you know, and there was a movement at the start in the past decade about changing images of women or sending girls to school. So India and also Pakistan started focusing on it. India did a lot more than Pakistan and produced a lot of content. You may have heard that India is producing a film, Thappad Kaun Bana Raha Hai? Who is producing
uh,
this?
uh,
Ma'am, I think it's Anubhav Sinha who made it.
Right. So
and
it's
ma'am, there was another one that Deepika Padukone I think produced. It was called Chapa, which was against acid attacks.
right. So actually, which means कि images are changing, right? So images change over a period of time, over 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. So this article actually focuses on change that first occurred after 30 years. Then it was, decade wise. You will see it's discussing how working women were shown in 1940s film, and then first change in the images was in 1970s, then 80s and 90s and new millennium. So there is continuous development in terms of representation of working women and their sexuality in films. So working women were considered immoral. Uh, I mean, the film showed them as immoral in 1940s. Okay, it doesn't mean that was the reality, but that is how a particular story was picked up and rendered for cinema.
But ma'am, it does like define the relationship between films, society, and the state because society at large had this view regarding women in general, which was very fear based during the time. So it translated onto a motion picture.
Right, that is very correct because cinema and society has an influence on content, right? For
Yes.
example, I think many of you may have seen Mere Paas Tum Ho. Uh,
No, ma'am, I avoided that like the plague.
all right, but I think that
I haven't watched it.
I taught a course to
I'm so happy about
I
it.
taught gender and media to students this year. I think you may have been in a different group because there were two teachers teaching gender and media. And in the gender and media course, what I realized almost I had it was a big group of students, and perhaps 8 to 10 students wrote articles on Mere Paas Tum Ho. So I had to find that TV play and see what was happening in it. And if you
Oh
are
no.
familiar with the story, it was the story of a Pakistani working woman. Mere,
Yes.
मैम वो हमने मतलब हमें ना जबरदस्ती दिखाई गई है ये ड्रामा क्योंकि it was everywhere, it was on social media, there were memes on it, every other post was about this drama, everything was circulating around this one play, and it was at times very annoying because even if you're not watching it on TV, we were still knowing what's going on about it.
right.
So
Yes, exactly.
and when
So,
I say I have done gender and
Ma'am,
media before this serial came, it was from Aima Khosa. pehle. So I think you weren't teaching at that time this course. When I was
Yeah, I taught gender and media in fall 2019.
oh, it
So
was
yeah,
in 18. I took it in 18.
all right. I think this was the first time I taught gender and media to mass comm students, journalism students. Okay. So what I was saying that Mere Paas Tum Ho actually had a woman who was working, and because she was working, the drama actually shows that she started cheating upon her husband, you know, and she developed a relationship with her boss. So actually, drama showed working woman as bad woman, and drama did show that working woman was sexually independent. Okay, so,
Um,
जी,
Sorry, ma'am, I had a question. Does the question of representing a working woman in a certain way come जब class की बात भी आ जाती है? For example, obviously, taking Western media aside, but let's say Mother India is one example where she is a working woman who is the independent, household manager and all. But उधर आकर उनको excessively glorify किया जाता है to sort of meet a certain standard of femininity or what a woman should be. So do we see such representations in Western media as well at that time?
there would always be exceptions. There would always be exceptions but when the scholars pick up, certain films, they are definitely find them inspiring, and they are discussing how those films are representing women, right? So yes, Mother India is an exception, and you can say that not all films represent working women that way, or women who are in charge of their lives as bad women. But what I'm saying, I'm talking about popular cinema. The articles are about popular film. There would be definitely articles on Mother India too, but I'll have to find them. I think I can request librarian to find an article on Mother India if anyone has written. I believe somebody must have written because it is one of the most famous films of this part of the world.
Thank
Okay,
you, ma'am.
okay,
Yes, yes, thank you.
all right. Okay, so after Femme Fatale, we have another set of readings. Again, this is not an article. I can definitely find an article. You've seen that most of these postings have articles, but here I have on this topic of misogyny and phylogeny. What we have here is the abstract from a number of articles, right? So you will see that I have posted abstracts of about 20 or more articles on misogyny and phylogeny. So I am sure that you would be familiar with this term, what misogyny means and what phylogeny means. Is everyone familiar with the term misogyny and phylogeny?
Miss, I'm familiar
Yes,
with
ma'am.
misogyny, but could you clarify
Misogyny,
the
but
other term a bit more?
surrounded by that word, by the way.
Please, can you repeat yourself? Because I think two, three people were talking together. जी.
I
Could you
think we always say the same thing कि हमने misogyny सुना हुआ है, but not the other word. I think that's what
Okay,
you were saying.
phylogeny is the opposite of misogyny. So, Amna, can you try explaining what is misogyny? All right. All right. So, misogyny is about hating women, about negative images of women, right? Or misogynistic images often focus
Sorry,
on.
my internet is really, I don't know, मैं उसे mute करती हूँ और फिर वो unmute नहीं होता है, and I try to,
No problem at all. असल में sometimes we have people around us, so that's why I say कि उसको mute रखें, signal भी बेहतर आता है if most people are
Yeah,
muted.
that's why I
But
keep on muting it when I stop talking to unmute me or not.
जी जी मैं आपसे
So,
पूछ रही थी, can you try explaining what is misogyny?
and it's a certain dislike, hatred, prejudice against women by the other members of the society. They can be other women and they can be other men. So yeah, it's against the
Yes,
women.
it's about hating women, about negative images of women. And
Yeah.
phylogeny is about loving women, right?
Okay.
So misogyny and phylogeny are opposites.
इसलिए हमने दूसरा टर्म सुना नहीं है ज्यादातर.
Okay. All right. So I am saying under this heading, I have not selected one article. I have selected about 20 or perhaps more abstracts of different articles. So what you would see here, right? Here are the articles about domestic um, portrayal of same-sex domestic violence in news media, and then there is another article. It says uh, coloring your prejudices from slut shaming to market nail polish to feminist activism. Actually, in Colombia, they have a brand of nail polish that actually has its brand name is slut. Brand name is domineering. So these different articles actually show that actually discuss negative images of women in different kind of media. For instance, this says Maseglo's nail polish colors are branded as rash, slutty, flirtatious, controlling, domineering, and others. So these different abstracts focus on different kind of researches on misogyny and phylogeny. So when we come to this article, what I will do that uh, I would request all of you, like I would want that each one of you selects one abstract, which means it's not very long. It will be maximum 1 page or 1.5 page long, and then we discuss misogyny and phylogeny in classroom, right? So far I have mentioned at least two different readings where we do not have proper articles. One was from the book uh, Black Skin, White Masks. I said I have selected only 3 pages for discussion because those pages focus on a novel by Mayoti Capicia, and the novel's title is Je suis Martinique. Okay, Mayuti Capicia worked in France, lived in France, so it was a black woman living in France, and she wanted whiteness in her life. This is the second class meeting that does not have a proper article. It is discussing a number of different abstracts on misogyny and phylogeny. Okay, and then it says boys and girls, right? So boys, girls, and their media experiences. Actually, these are very short articles, um, right? So these two short articles, you would find them very relevant to Pakistan, though these articles are from Germany, right? And these articles focus on media experiences and construction of gender identity of boys and girls. These are very short articles. It says here it is a 3 page long article. So I believe it would, and these 3 pages would have plenty of images also. Can you see these images? Okay. And there is another short article. It says what shapes myself, which means each one of us. This is again a short article, 5-6 pages, and in these 5-6 pages you will find many pictures. right? So you can see the reading part is not 6 page because we have many images here. This is by Nancy Jennings, and this is by Daphne Lemish. Both of these researches are actually very long. What we see here is the summary of quite long researches. These two researches were conducted by a TV channel in Germany. Channel's name is Television. And Television wanted to see what children want themselves, because they felt that most of the times adults decide what to show to children, and they thought they should find out what children want. So they conducted different images to understand them better. So these articles, actually, the first article says that boys are brought up to be tough. Can you see this image on the left? The two boys are fighting, physically fighting with each other, and the girls are brought up to be, are prepared for romantic relationships. They are dreamers, which is not always the case, but most of media focuses on this kind of gender identities, that boys should be tough and girls should be soft. Okay. And this other article actually asks, you can see that they asked 114 children of age group 5 to 19 from 7 countries. So you can say this is a 7 countries research, and total number of respondents is 114, and their age group is 5 to 19. They are just asking these children of age groups 5 to 19 who they are, what shapes them, what is their identity. So children describe their identities and describe their lives and their experiences, their relationships, their desires and dreams, as they together form their identity or construct their identity. Okay, so I think what we can do, that we not essentially read this particular reading towards the end of the course. We try doing it a bit sooner, or we can do it later also, but by then, because these are simple articles and the other articles are quite complicated as opposed to these two articles. So I sometimes feel that towards the end of the course, going to for a simple reading is different, so why not do it at the start? Okay, so I will see where to read it. I may change its date. Okay, then here is another article that says A Girl in the River. Are you familiar with the film?
Yes,
Okay, so this is Sharmeen Obaid Chinoy's film, and apart from right, and it's good that you have seen the film. We discussed this film against an article by Maslow. If you can see this image, Maslow created this diagram, and he was looking at hierarchy of needs of different individuals, right? So instead of discussing honor killing as such, we just tried to see what were the needs of the protagonist, this girl. Okay, we try seeing what Sabah wanted, what were her needs, and what were the needs of the people, her father and husband, who attempted to kill her. Okay, so we are actually looking at hierarchy of needs or honor killing slightly differently. Uh, we are trying to see, uh, because her father, if you see that Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy actually interviewed both the father and the daughter, because she was trying to understand what both of them wanted and why the attacker attacked the daughter, and why the daughter uh, finally forgave the father for attempting to kill her. So, and then also compare it with other honor killing cases, for example,
This was
Kandir Bloch, etc.
interesting depiction of the police in the role of honor killing as well, and how they actually help them out instead of extending brutality, as
Right,
was expected.
right. Police actually works for the state, right? And police works
Yes.
for the state, so state desires social order, right? So I believe there were quite a few films in the past year that were focusing on police, how police treated the couples who were involved in kind of relationship, etc. I think there were quite a few films from India. I don't know what Section 375 was focusing on. Was it focusing on something similar?
I can't recall.
Okay, I wonder if that film is posted here. Yes, that film is posted here. So you can probably, if I play this trailer.
कब हुआ था? सुबह 11 साढ़े 11 बजे।
So
फिल्म निर्देशक
I believe you cannot hear the audio. Can you hear the audio?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So I think this actually focuses on.
था उस मूवी में
Okay, all right. So actually, you can say that media keeps on presenting different kind of stories and different kind of images. So we will actually be discussing this honor killing against hierarchy of needs by Maslow. Okay. So this film, the next film used to be on YouTube, but I do not find it on YouTube because I believe the filmmaker Raja Amari is her name. Raja Amari is a woman's name. Okay, I believe she has removed. It was initially available for. It was the full movie was available on YouTube. She has removed full movie from YouTube, and now what we see here is only clips of the film. It does say here, yeah, there is. I can try playing this clip. I'm not sure how long is the clip. Let's try. See, it's 10-minute long. Okay, so this film.
Ma'am, the
जी
audio has been muted in the
नहीं नहीं
video.
मैं आपको
Perhaps that's why we
नहीं
can't
नहीं
hear it.
नहीं it's not because I have muted it. It's because you can't hear it on Hangout. That's why I
Oh,
said I have unmuted it. Can you hear it? I'm sure you can't hear it,
no
no,
right?
ma'am.
You could see from these clips जो कि आपको यहाँ पे नज़र आ रहे हैं ना different clips here that her life totally changes. And if you are familiar with different types of dances that are popular in the Arab world, for example, belly dance and any other dances. So this woman actually does not remain a normal widow after this point. She's different, but at the same time, she's trying to maintain privacy. Uh, all right. So I said, okay, if we can, if you said you can download and post it in Google Classroom, that would be very nice. If because I think it would take a bit to download it. What you can do, you can upload it in Google Drive, which you would find here. It says Google
Okay.
Drive, right? So it says
Ma'am,
Drive here. So you upload it in Drive and then everybody can watch it. So we will try
Okay.
discussing Saturn Route by Raja Amari because it focuses on lives of widows in general. Ji,
Ma'am, by when would you need the film?
we will not urgently need it, but say if you can download it in 2-3 weeks, is it?
Okay, that's good enough. Okay.
So 2-3 weeks means okay, then we can post it. Then you can post it on Google Drive and share it with everyone. And by the time we start discussing the film, we have seen the film and then we can discuss what is happening in the film.
Okay,
Okay,
ma'am. Thank you. Yes.
all right. And I think it perhaps won't be possible for us to see everything or discuss everything that is posted here, but this is tentative course outline, and we can probably shuffle them around, seeing how we are proceeding and discussing. So there is another film by Tracy Maffei. Film's title is Bedevil 1993. Maffei had posted it on YouTube. She has also removed it because I think too many people were trying to access it over the past decade. Bedevil actually focuses on memory that goes down generations. And because in black cultures, um, this is not exactly the African culture, this is on Australian culture. Because the film is Australian and it focuses on Australian Aboriginal women and how they were passing their traditions, culture, and stories, how they used oral tradition to pass on their cultures. So the film focuses on memory. It's a trilogy, and it has 3 short films about memory of um Australian Aboriginal people, memory of the settler, white settler. Okay, uh, the first of the 3 focuses on memory of white settlers. This first one is not on women, but second and third is on women. So first one just provides a backdrop to what was happening in Australia and how Australian Aboriginal women uh, represent themselves. Tracy Maffei's film is one of the first film Aboriginal people have produced in Australia because Aboriginal people did not have any representation in media. They were represented as they were conceived by white people. As I mentioned, mommies, matriarchs, and controlling images of black women in US. Similarly, uh, these Australian Aboriginal uh, had certain images that were created by white Australia for them. So Tracy Maffei's film actually discusses memories of uh, Aboriginal people about white Australians' arrival in Australia. And the first film is about this kid who becomes a criminal at later life. So white Australia was seeing Aboriginals as poor and thieves, right? So as we move on, I said second and third. Actually, this is a woman's film. Tracy Maffei is a woman who is producing the film on memories of Australian Aboriginals. So these Aboriginal children think that a white soldier drowned in this part of Brisbane. You can see, and his ghost lives here. So while these children are sitting on the tree here, the ghost actually pulls the kid's leg. Right? So these three are ghost stories that Tracy Maffei depicted in the film. So Rick becomes criminal later in life. The second is on Choo Choo Choo, because arrival of technology in Australia uh, created fear among the Aboriginal, and a little girl died because she had an accident with the train. So her ghost also wanders in the area. And the third film is a love story in this one. So both the couple, they belong to two different tribes. They run away, they get married, and then both of them die. So their ghosts also live in the house that they vacated. And this film actually focuses on memory, fear of urbanization, and fear of white settlement in Australia. Because in the last one, you see that developers try to develop a multi-story building where the couple had died, but the couple keeps haunting the place and they cannot develop the area. Okay. So I said among all what we have discussed so far, these two, Raja Amari's Sartan Rouge and Tracy Maffei's Bedevil. These are two women films. Uh, so we will try discussing one or the other of the woman film and try to see how women films are different from films made by men. Pakistan Education and Women actually is a documentary film that focuses on how women, if Pakistani women are getting educated, on education of Pakistani women in the 4 provinces, right? And Pakistan 4 actually is a film on 4 women of Pakistani origin. They are Pakistani Americans. One is a master chef, one is a theater artist, and the other two are in sports that are mostly meant for men, right? So you will find this film on YouTube. This is by a Pakistani filmmaker who works for Singapore TV. Okay. Uh, I think it may be difficult to discuss all of these topics, but we will certainly try covering most of them. Uh, and in the meanwhile, we'll try seeing how many articles we can write during the course. So please, if you have any questions, do ask the questions. I think I have mostly introduced the topics today, and we do not have sufficient time to start discussing an article. So you can ask questions if you have any.
Ma'am, would you be able to tell us when we'll have our midterms or approximately finals किस दौरान होंगे like time में?
We will have midterm in the 3rd week from now.
Okay, okay.
Uh, what I'll do that I'll quickly give you um, third week or for final I can give you more time after the classes. You know, after the classes have ended, you know this we have this class 3 times a week. As we have this class 3 times a week, you will finish this course perhaps sooner. And I can give you more time for writing your final exam, which means uh, in August and towards the end of August when we stop having classes, I can give you a week or 10 days uh, to finish your paper and upload it. Okay?
जी
So,
जी okay, thank you.
and if you
Yes,
can,
ma'am. Thank you.
okay. And if you finish it, how many courses are you taking? 2 courses?
Yes, including this one.
Ma'am, three courses.
One,
Three,
ma'am.
ma'am.
So,
Okay.
I think two of the courses are from you and one is from Sir Kazi. All three are here.
All right. So you are taking both film theory and criticism and women in media.
Yes, ma'am. I'm taking both of
Okay.
the
How many
courses.
people are taking 3 courses?
I am,
Mhm. I am as well, ma'am.
I think,
Okay.
two.
And I did not see who was it. Amna and
Ma'am,
And
I'm also
Shabano,
taking
ma'am.
3 courses. Komal.
all right.
Same as I'm.
So Amna is taking two theoretical courses. Anybody else taking 2 theoretical courses?
Ma'am, I'm taking 2 courses.
Oh, okay. I think because for theoretical courses, uh, in practical courses you will be working with your team. In theoretical courses you will be working alone. So let's see. I think I will not give you too many assignments because we are short of time. So, but try uh, uh, in the next class. I would want that for the assignments I can briefly describe the strategy. That for all assignments that I give, I want students to focus on what you are watching on screen, right? So it means that when you do your assignments, I believe DLA and psychology students know how to use literature while doing the assignments, okay? And TFT students, it only means that when we discuss an article in class, it is, for example, let me open an article. So this is an article, right? I do want that you mention quotations from the article in your assignments. Quotation if it is relevant to what you are discussing. For example, if you are discussing, uh, I think I have closed the link to Saturn Rouge. If you were discussing Raja Amari's film or a scene from A Girl in the River, I would want you to describe the scene. Describe what Sabha said or what her father said who attempted to kill her. For example, father says, uh, वो भूखी थी, क्या उसके पास घर नहीं था? मतलब father was talking about her physiological needs, that he was feeding the daughter and he had provided her safety and home. He feels she should not have run away with the boy, Kesser, right? So I would like you to mention the scene, describe the scene, and discuss what he said. For example, he
Yes,
said,
I cannot hear you.
you can't hear me?
Hello?
Gigi, you cannot hear me?
Ma'am,
No,
I
I
can
can
hear
hear you
you
now.
very
But
clearly.
but
मैं आपसे सिर्फ यही कह रही थी कि for doing assignments of this class, it would be very important to discuss what is happening in a scene and what kind of dialogues people used for communication. So I would like it that you mention the dialogue what father said or what the daughter said and what was happening in the scene, right? So for discussions or for assignments of this class, it will be very important to precisely mention what happened or precisely say what somebody said. The father said, "Kya wo bhooki thi?" In A Girl in the River, Saba runs away with Kasser and marries him, and father attempts to kill her subsequently, right? So I'm saying that if you were discussing that film, you would say that father said he was taking care of her physiological needs. He was providing her food and had provided her home. So why did she run away? So what I'm saying, it would be important to mention the dialogues or words people say, right? So I'm not talking about summary of the films or dramas because people sometimes do mention summary. It's important to mention summary, but summary should end in 5-6 lines or 3-4 lines. uh, and dialogue or situation should be given more importance. Situation or a dialogue that you see in a particular scene, so you can actually discuss the psychology or culture behind that particular dialogue. Okay.
Ma'am, I have a question
जी जी.
that I think कि जब आगे चल के आप हमें देंगे assignments तब ज़्यादा बेहतर समझ आएगा. But if you're talking about a certain thing, can we also engage with other texts and other films that we can relate to that particular topic, or are we supposed to stick to the readings you have provided us?
You can
For the
you can certainly use other texts because that is called literature review. And
yeah.
it is extremely important that while discussing the films that we select, you do discuss, um you use as much literature as you can for discussion or supporting your argument. Okay. And if it is absolutely essential, then do mention other film that you can use for comparison, right? Or for saying that both films are showing the same thing, or both films are showing probably different resolution to the film. Or you can compare uh, a dialogue from this film or a dialogue from another film. So, but when we are focusing on one film, so I would prefer, for example, as I mentioned earlier, that students were writing a lot on Mere Paas Tum Ho. So we had to discuss scenes and dialogues from Mere Paas Tum Ho, right? But for supporting your argument, uh, if people were discussing, for instance, sexuality of the protagonist in Mere Paas Tum Ho, they could definitely use the text from the book that we opened just now, Working Girl by Yvonne Tasker. Because Working Girl has, I think, a number of chapters, perhaps 8 to 10 chapters or more, on working girls. So you can find a lot of chapters in one place, or you can find something on working girls somewhere else, because I think a lot of people have been writing on working women.
Ma'am, I had a question. For this course, since some of us are psychology students, so do we have to familiarize ourselves with the theory related to media in general, या is it not a necessity? And अगर आप कभी
uh,
थोड़ा सा बता दें कि कैसे होगी फिर?
देखें, I would like it if you use theories that you have studied in psychology department to discuss.
Okay, okay.
Okay, because if
Thank
you,
you.
because it's things are often interdisciplinary. It depends on your approach to the film. If you are approaching the film from a psychological angle, or if you have, it depends on your hypothesis as well. If you have a thesis statement, uh, because every paper will require a thesis statement or a question that you would answer in the paper. So it depends how you are responding. You can select any theory from anywhere because psychology and culture and communication theories do apply. It would be nice if you add some of the class readings in your research papers, or some quotations from the class readings in your paper. That would be very nice, because then it would be easy for me to understand that you are understanding what we are discussing in this class. Okay.
Okay.
I would
मैम
जी बताइए
सॉरी
जी बताइए
प्रेजेंटेशन किस तरह से लाइक होगी कि would we have to do it in groups or individually होगी?
नॉर्मली तो मैं इंडिविजुअली ही ले लेती हूँ, बिकॉज व्हाट आई वांट कि जो आप यू विल बी राइटिंग सम असाइनमेंट्स, you'll be doing some assignments and mid and final exam. So all I would want that you change one of your assignments or midterm exam into a presentation for the class. So as it would be your own assignment or mid exam, it would be easy for you to make a PowerPoint presentation of your own assignment or exam. So I would like you to present your own paper and your own work to the class.
Okay, okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. So I'm not asking you to prepare a new presentation. I'm asking you to present your own work to the class. All right.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Let's mark attendance then.
Ma'am, also, for the next session, can we please switch to Zoom meetings instead of Hangouts? Because some of us use Hangouts on phone, or वहाँ पे जो है there is no availability of message box, so we cannot message there on the phones.
All right.
So it's better to switch to Zoom.
Definitely, that is why I requested that you guys create a WhatsApp group right now. So we will use Zoom meeting for next class, because as I said, we will be watching videos as well. And
Yes, ma'am.
on Hangout, we cannot hear when we play videos, right? So we will use Hangout for, we will use Zoom for the class on Wednesday and after.
Okay.
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 So let's see,
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, Alishba, absent. Amina,
Present, ma'am.
Present.
and both Amnas are present. Ariba,
Present, ma'am.
Hassan Amir, Ikra. Is Ikra present? Did she join at all? Kanza, Komal,
Present.
Kulsum, Myra,
Present.
Mariam,
Present.
Nisha. Was she present? Let me check here. Uh, okay, let's please try seeing names of some of the students here. Uh, Two unknown, two people joined without their proper names, so I don't know who to mark present. Zoha, Ariba, Zarish, Komal, Kulsum. Okay. All right, because it will be difficult to negotiate with registrar to mark them present once I mark them absent. All right, so Misha is not present. Nimra,
Present.
Umar was present, I couldn't hear him. Raja Soheb was present, I could not hear him. Shahbano,
Present.
Tehreem, Zarish and Zoha. All right, so I have
Present,
marked.
ma'am.
All right, I have marked. I think I have marked Alishba, Hassan, Ikra, Kanza absent, and I have also marked Nisha and Tehreem absent. Do you know any of these students?
No, ma'am.
All right. Okay, I'll try contact.
Ma'am, I will inform Misha. She is my class fellow. I'll let
All
her
right.
know.
So please add her in Zoom link after asking her,
Yeah,
right?
sure. I'll do that.
Okay. And next classes will be held on Zoom, and I will uh, post the Zoom link in WhatsApp group. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
All right. Thank you. If you have any
Thank you,
questions, you
ma'am.
can ask questions. Otherwise, I think we'll wind up today's class. Or
Thank you, ma'am.
okay. And I
Ma'am, I do though.
जी बताइए.
So, ma'am, when we talk about that, how women were being portrayed from time to time and till this day, but we do, when we talk about books, when we engage with the literature, we see how the writers, give us an entire reflection of that time. If we read Tolstoy, we have this image of the Russian era he's talking about. Then we read George Orwell or other writers. When we watch these movies, when we talk about the Hollywood representation of women, do you think that those when the image was being misled or misrepresented, do you think that there was a certain a criticism towards that in that time when they talked about the other movements were going on? Do you was those movements also talking about the kind of films that were being made in that time?
Movements also always focus on films, right? For instance, when we mention Laura Mulvey, and she started criticizing images in Hollywood films. Uh, if you know about Miss, I'm sure you know about Miss World competition and Miss Universe competition. And I said
Yeah.
Laura Mulvey went back to her own paper. She revisited her paper in 2008 and 2009. She published two more books on visual pleasure. So you would find that organizers of Miss World competition uh, responded. One of the organizers said, only plain women talk like this,
Okay.
right? So
Yeah.
you can understand that there were different point of views, and marketing is something else. Selling Miss World competition or Miss Universe competition has something else, because marketing has different objectives, and
Yeah.
scholarship has different objectives. So what Laura Mulvey was doing, she was creating debate on. She is one of the leading feminist uh, authors, right?
Hmm.
She is from UK, and you can understand that we even when she criticized Hitchcock in visual pleasure and narrative cinema,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hitchcock did say, yes, that is what I'm doing. I'm hooking the audience to silver screen in the darkness of the theater. And I have to, like Hitchcock is one of the best filmmakers in the world. So
Yeah.
filmmakers have different goals from scholars. So
Hmm.
scholars are actually scholarship is also a way of activism, and
Yeah.
scholars were part of different movements as well. So you can say that movements do respond. In the next class, I think when we discuss representations of women I said here, right, this article here, you would see that this article is actually focusing on how women were represented in Pakistani cinema over a period of time. So we would discuss women like Heer, who were decision makers, and we will also discuss women like Shamimara, who played very traditional roles in most of the films, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
we have all women were represented in different ways in different cinemas, and many cinemas actually focused on traditional women or promoted traditional women.
But Miss, I would also like to add there were also certain female directors like Agnes Varda, who initiated the French New Wave movement, and she was considered like a feminist film director because she showed her activism and her vision through her films.
Right,
So,
exactly.
how many? So, my question is regarding like how many of these directors and filmmakers and producers are male versus female?
Uh,
Because that also has an impact on the narrative.
what we were looking at, I think we had at least three films by women. Like Bedevil from Australia is by a woman filmmaker, Aboriginal woman filmmaker. Uh, the film on Muslim Widow is also by a woman filmmaker, Raja Amari. She's from Tunisia. And Pakistan Education in Women is also a woman's film. So you can say that there are not very many women who are producing films, and the present course has some films by women filmmakers and is focusing on representations of women from in cinemas of different parts of the world. You know how women of different races or colors or nationalities represented in Hollywood cinema or in Pakistani cinema. For example, Orientalism discusses how Oriental women are represented in Hollywood cinema. And the article was by Yasmin Amari. That is again a woman. That's a very short article because she discusses how Oriental women are represented in Hollywood film. So we either have criticism by women, I think we have perhaps three films by women, but many articles by women. Uh, for instance, Sadaf Ahmed's article, she was teaching at LAMS on representation of rape in Pakistani films, and then articles on Pakistani film, and then article Yvonne Tasker's article, Femme Fatale is again article by women authors. So we have many articles by women authors here. Uh, Offhand, what I can recall actually, Fanan is the only male, or Edward Said is the second male that I mentioned in the readings. Many of the articles are by women. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Take care.
Thank you, ma'am.